Mr. 845 social media and events.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and I'm interviewing another small business owner. This is one of my longtime friends, Omar. Omar, for everybody else, tell us who you are and what do you do?
All right. So, hey guys, everybody. I am Omar Harper here. I am a real estate associate broker, actually, a team lead over here, running a group called Team Heart. We're at EXP Realty. We can get into a little bit more, but Heart is actually an acronym that we can touch on a little bit later on.
All right, all right. So now the biggest thing I always like to make sure we get out of the way is if nobody watches anything else, they want to contact you, how exactly would they go about doing that?
All right. So you have a couple options. You can find my, website is www.rewithheart. I'm right there. And heart is HART is how you would spell it on that one. So RE with heart. You can find me Omar Harper. My Facebook is very easy to find. I keep it public. Instagram would be the same as an easy way to get in contact with me. Or if you really want to give me a call directly, number 845-209-0133. Make it nice. I make it nice and easy. If you search my name, though, you'll find my information without a problem.
Yeah, I search them all the time. So all right, let's get into it. The real estate market is like crazy, right? And being a realtor must be really crazy right now as it is. So, tell us like, what do people have to get ready nowadays for meeting with someone like you and getting prepared for that home journey, if you will, finding that perfect home for themselves?
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. When you're really looking to start that process of doing a purchase of a property, I know it's the last thing people want to normally do, but it'd be good to start to really look at, banks, mortgages options. Um, and a lot of times I'll sit down with someone, I'll do a buyer consult and I'll have them set up with my mortgage person. But why? Not just because I want to know you're approved. No, because I want to make sure that we can set you up for the easiest process possible. So if you're going to be approved now to 400,000, well, then what type of mortgage is that going to be? Okay, so we're going to need this much of a down payment to be prepared. Do you have that? And then also, okay, so you're normally going to look at your closing costs. So this is what the closing costs may be. Are we going to need to do a concession if you start to move towards something immediately? Are you going to have it already to where we can just jump right into the mix? So it's just good to really have that first kind of sit down understanding with at least a general idea of where your price point is. And then not even just for price point of what you can necessarily get, because a lot of times what a bank will give you will be more than what you even maybe want to spend on a monthly. So then now you can take that and pull it back and say, okay, so I'm approved for 500, but I really only want to pay about this much a month. So maybe 400 is better. Maybe 350 is better. So you're able to really start to figure out. And then once we know that, we can set you up with the correct numbers going forward to make it the rest of the process simple as best as we can. Real estate is always interesting. So
yeah, it all depends on the house, the amount of bids on it, all that stuff. I mean, the market's kind of crazy now, right? Especially everything after the pandemic. Everybody has the capability of working remotely in some cases, some hybrid. So they're looking for more options. The Hudson Valley has been a crazy place for people to go because they're like, wow, look at all this property. And I get it for the same price I would get like a little apartment building in the city. I can get a whole house with a yard, and it's crazy how much it really has changed the market. So you're getting them prepared in the financial sense, right? And you're kind of saying, hey, this is what you're going to be working with. Do some of the buyers actually talk with you and say, hey, I want to stay in X price range, or do they go by the larger, hey, I want a $400,000 house, or is it like, okay, monthly I want to be at like safely this, or they're just like, hey, just go for it, whatever it is, we're gonna go for it.
I think most people, well, let's be honest, most people tend to enjoy going a little bit outside of their means potentially. But I think that the caveat to that is that a lot of times people will be, the bank only allows you. So when you're going for a mortgage, they only allow you to go up to, most banks are like a 42%, what they call a back end ratio. So that's a whole nother thing that we can get into more with your debt to income ratios. So they'll normally anywhere from 42 to 45 is what most normal banks will do. Occasional brokers will get you up to 50s even, but that'll stop it to where if you're making $1,000 a month, you're not going to be able to have more than 500 a month in debts. So that's if you're including credit cards, anything else that you might have that are reporting to your credit.
Car,
Yeah, car, exactly. So, so it's gonna start to kind of hold you back a little bit from there. So then after that, it just comes down to what are you paying? Excuse me. So I know a lot of people will be, like I'm a big proponent in not renting. Well, if you're gonna have to rent, make it as short term as you possibly can. Because one thing I say to people all the time, when you're renting, the interest rate on rent is 100%. The rent's going clean out the window. It's never coming back to you. It's never helping you in the long run in any way, shape, or form. So I like to tell people a lot of times that, okay, you might be, if you were able to renting at your place at 2,700, but now you're getting a mortgage at 3,000, you're going to start getting certain tax benefits and all the kind of stuff that you didn't have as a tenant. That's going to help you out in the back end. So it's going to almost kind of wash itself out. And then you're also building equity. So you're going to have value down the line where now maybe this thing you bought for 400 is worth 550 in 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the trends of some of the people that were buying back in, I don't know, what is that, 2012, 2013, their housing prices are looking pretty favorable nowadays. So, in working with you, other than the financial sense, what are people supposed to set up for, like, how do they set up the preferences with you? Like, do they sit down with you and say, okay, this is the type of house that I want a colonial, or I want a Cape Cod, or I want a duplex? How exactly would they go about the process of selecting the style of home that you could probably start searching for them?
Well, yeah, I mean, so it would come down to a sit down at that point to get a better idea of exactly what they like. And I think a lot of times, it even comes down to just getting out there and putting your hands on the wall, like looking at a couple actually houses, because then you can, a lot of people won't know if you're not someone who follows real estate heavily, you may not know what a Cape Cod is versus a ranch versus a colonial. You'll say, "Oh, I like that house," and then you'll walk in and be like, "Okay, that's a colonial," and then you hate a different. I have clients right now who he said I hate the house, the type of house where you walk in and the steps are right in front of you. I was like, "Oh, raised ranch, you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, that." But he had no clue what it was specifically. So once we started
Mhm.
able to narrow down what it was he does and doesn't like in a house, we were able to find him a colonial that would work. He was even open to like a split level.
Mhm.
But he just didn't like that initial entrance way of a raised ranch. So it's one of those things that I think a lot of times people will get a better feel of what you like, because then there's also some contemporary style raised ranches that don't have that. So it could be a situation where you might find out that you like this type of raised ranch, but you don't like the normal cookie cutter raised
Yeah.
ranch style. So I think is a big part of first looking in your range, getting an idea of where you can be, and then starting to go out and get a feel of what that will give you and what you like in it. And that sometimes also changes that price, like we were talking about before, Ramon, because someone may be in a situation where now they're like, well, we don't want to go over 350. And then they're seeing, well, I don't really like Cape Cods in this area, but maybe under 350 is all the Cape Cods given. But now
Mhm.
we're getting raised ranches or colonials once we hit 4 to 425, let's just say.
Yeah.
So now they're like, okay, well, we have the room to play with. We'll start to look at that, because now we know that we like that type of house. If we're going to have to pay for something, we're going to want it to be what we want it to be.
Yeah, yeah. And then now when it comes to, like, let's say they're finding that house that they like, right? But it's not exactly the way they want it, right? But and they have the capability because they were approved for hire. And they want to do a renovation, if you will, or they say, hey, this kitchen doesn't look right. I want to renovate it as soon as I move in. Do they have the capability of, like, working with you to say, how exactly do we go about doing that process? Or, like, how do they flesh that out, if you will? Like, hey, this is a $500,000 house, but it looks like it needs $100,000 worth of work in it. That type of stuff. Is that more like you kind of guide them through that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's one of those things when you're talking about that, if you have a house that steps in and need work, it comes down to first, is the house price based on the work the house needs? So
Hmm.
if the house is a 650 house and it needs 75 or 100 grand worth of work, and they're selling it for 500 or 550, then okay, the house might kind of be already priced based on the work that it needs. Now, if we're in a situation where it's certain things you want to get done, there's definitely ways you can do a renovation right within purchasing it. Now, the caution, the caveat with those is that if you do like a renovation loan, normally the rate's going to be a little higher. Normally there's a bit more fees. So your closing cost is going to be a bit more. So it's going to be, so that's going to be some of the negatives on it. But if you say that you want a house that's, turnkey, clean, you want the bathroom and the kitchens and stuff all updated, you can step into and have those just financed right in within the property. And as long as the repairs will then also will equate up to the value the loan will now need because of financing in the repair costs, the bank will give you the money to do it. You know what I mean? You just have to have a licensed contractor. You know, renovation loans have a little bit of a different process than your normal mortgages, but they're definitely an available option for anybody who will want to take on that time to get the renovations done up front.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you do not only the real estate stuff, but you help. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, hey, that's a nice house, but then you kind of educate people so that they can kind of understand what they're purchasing, because you know, you never know. They could say, oh, I love this house, and then they just want to move in. But everybody that I've known, whoever moves into a house is always like, I think I want to change that. I think I want to change that. It would be great if they were just like, I just want to paint it and that's it. It's good. It's good to go. But most of the time that's not the case. So when it comes to real estate, now do you only service the Dutchess County area? Are you pretty much like all over the place? Like, where's your area of service?
Okay, so when we're speaking of area of service, I am Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Westchester. I grew up in the Bronx. I'll even go to the Bronx sometimes. I don't know if I said Ulster, but I'll do Ulster too. And I'm actually licensed in Connecticut. So most of Fairfield County, Connecticut, I'll actually go into a lot also. Connecticut is just it's just something different. Like, you know, Connecticut's the way their deals work are different than New York. So I find it intriguing. I like the problem solving part of real estate from my point of view. So I enjoy that part. And just to I want to piggyback off of what you were starting to say before also. You know, when people are walking through a house with me, I tell people all the time, I'm never going to be the person that's going to walk through and tell you how gorgeous this house is. Most of the time, I'm going to point out what I see wrong with it. You know, like I'm gonna say, okay, you know, this furnace looks like it's on the last ends of its legs. You know, the hot water heater, big one, is easy one to tell on a hot water heater, and this is just to help anyone out there.
Mhm.
If you ever notice the bottom of your hot water heater is looking like it's starting to rust a little bit, that means it's about to go. You know, before you have that come home with that big amount of water all over your basement floor
Mhm.
or wherever your hot water heat is, just know that that's the sign that it's about to go on you. So it's one of those things that you say in reference to educating people, that you start to understand that, especially if someone's coming from being a tenant in a place, they never had to take care of these things. So getting a general idea of how long things are meant to last, how much time it has on it currently, what to look for it's going wrong, becomes a big part of just helping them be prepared for the house once they have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's important because you never know, how do you call them? The oopsies, if you will. When you move into a house, the first incidental things, like you don't expect something to go wrong, and it goes wrong as soon as you move in. You know, like when I bought my house, my foundation had a crack in the foundation, and I had to fix it. So I had to first week I was there, digging an 8 foot deep hole and trying to, you know, patch that foundation. It was not fun, to say the least. So now you not only help with selling too, right? You also help with the buying, or the buyer, I should say. You do both, or is it only like
Yeah,
one or the other?
so I do work with buyers. I've actually, a lot of my focus has switched towards seller wise more, just because you know, I feel like a lot of times with the buyer process is definitely a great learning ground. So a lot of since I'm running a team, I have a lot of agents that are working with me. So getting them started off, I'll normally set them up with a lot with buyers so they can kind of get a feel of the process, how a
Mhm.
real estate deal works before I really start digging them into working with sellers also. So I still work with buyers? Yes. I do. It's one of those things where, depending on the situation, depending on depending on how they kind of came, referral, if it's someone I know personally, you know, then okay, I have no, you know, I'll jump right into to doing it. But in most cases, in a lot of buyer situations, I train one of my agents to run just like how I do. So it gives them the opportunity to get their feet wet and start to really feel the business a little bit more by going out and representing and helping some people to get into a house.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know, when it comes to real estate, you know, it's always like, how exactly do I go about the process? And you kind of brought it up in the beginning, and kind of telling people, okay, this is what you want to have set. Is there anything that they have to have other than like a pre-approval or something like that? Maybe like maybe their desires or some paperwork. I don't know how it works, but do they have to have anything else set for them for when the time comes? They're gonna have to pull that trigger and say, okay, I want this house. You know, how exactly do we go about doing that? You know, like, is there anything that would, like, when they're working with you, have to like, oh, we love this house, we want to get it. Okay, what do we need to get this house, right? What exactly is the process for that?
Well, I mean, so I'm very much systematized and online based. So a lot of times we'll sit down and get all the paperwork put together as an electronic signature on the spot, which is one of the things that you'll need. You need to kind of just know once again how much you want to put at a contract point. So there's an amount you want to put it. There's two kind of amounts of money you're going to be putting out at the initial part of doing of purchasing a house. It's going to be, you're going to spend money on the appraisal, you're going to spend money on the inspection, but you also need to be prepared for how much money you're going to give at contract, because a real estate deal is not solidified until there's what they call consideration or money given at the contract time. So, knowing kind of what we're going to be, one of the things I like to talk to people about is that, okay, if you're going to put 20% down, maybe we put 5% at contract, because what you put at contract is what you have the opportunity of potentially losing if you default on going forward. And now that's going to be, you have to have a certain situation happen for that to happen. Like you have to be, you have to, just decide really to change your mind. We put in things called contingencies, and then we'll discuss your situation. So that's one of the other conversations that we would have there, Ramon, is what your situation is going to require and how do we protect you best to make sure this money you put down doesn't potentially lose just because of something silly. If you're selling a house first, then maybe we need to put a contingency of that house to sell for you to purchase this one. Because if we don't, now your earnest money, the money that you put down at contract, can potentially be lost if you're not able to buy that house. So it's just knowing the person's situation, getting down. That's why I'm so big on really sitting down and having that kind of consultation time with them to understand where they're at, what's going to be the best steps for them, and then we can literally have an idea of, okay, these are the type of contingencies we're going to need to protect you to put into the deal. This is how much we're going to put in contract. We can kind of have those steps already set up. So then now when we do it, for me, it's an autofill click of a button to write it up and send it off around. And if you love a house.
Yeah. I mean, I know from experience that you do very good work with that stuff, based on some of the family members that you've helped in my past. But the other thing is, I want to make sure that people understand now, is it only residential that you work with? Do you also work with commercial?
I lightly work with commercial. Commercial
Okay.
isn't one of my primaries, being honest. I've got into it a little bit more recently. I have a couple commercial clients that I'm working with as of right now. As I started to, as of course, as things progress, as I get further into the business, I start to teach and learn myself a little bit more of different pieces of it. So, I have the buyer process pretty, down pat. I mean, there's very rarely there's something that comes up. There's still occasionally something that comes up which trips me up, which is kind of nice, actually. I like to know that there's always some new nuance to potentially still learn on. But so then I started getting heavier in the seller. So then I'm really getting that process refined and down. And then as I'm in the process of learning that, really finalizing that, I'm starting to work on learning more of the commercial piece also,
Yeah.
just to be able to kind of have just sharpen the tool belt across the board and be able to help with all facets of it.
Yeah. And then, some of the things that I like to always ask people, and this is going to be kind of like a left field question for you. Well, because I know you so well for so long. When we were in high school, I'm sure that real estate is not the aim or the goal that you really wanted in your future. So, based on that, take me through like what kind of drew you to real estate and like how that process worked. Like, I know that there were things that you had in your life that you wanted to do, and then you ultimately landed on this. So kind of like what drew you to real estate?
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of an interesting story to throw out there. Not a lot of people know this, so you guys are going to get some privy information real quick, a little bit about my backstory of my life. So I herniated 2 discs and bulged one really bad, right? Maybe 2 months before my 25th birthday. So that was 2000 and
I know how that feels. Right
yeah,
there with
yeah,
you.
yeah. I was working somewhat construction jobs. I was actually working 2 full-time jobs. I was a nut at the time. And when I hurt my back. So I was laid up for about 6 months to a year, give or take. And I got forced to go out by friends. Thank you, Jaheim. I got forced to go out by friends one night and ran into someone who was telling me they were doing real estate. And he said, well, look, off of a closing I just did, I bought my, look at this is the engagement ring I just got, because at that time it was just his fiance. So in my mind, I was like, I've always had high ambition, and I was like, it's not the first time someone told me that my personality would do good with real estate. So I was like, okay. So once I kind of did that, I read into it a little bit more. I met my at that time broker. I did an interview, with a couple brokers through the area, met him, felt comfortable with going forward with him. So I started the course that November, passed my test by that January.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
that's what got me into real estate.
I
Actually,
mean, it
very
wasn't
much.
awesome with the bulging discs. Trust me, I know that's a painful process altogether. But it's awesome that you took that that change and that drive that somebody, said, listen, you got to get outside, man. We gotta hang out and go out. And then you took that opportunity to learn not only something and then grow it into what it is today. So it's
I
great.
mean, and this can be a lesson for anybody in anything that you're doing. Like when I had the back injury, it put me definitely in probably one of my lowest points coming through my life. Like it was just definitely, I was definitely down. I wasn't the same person at that time. Like I kind of felt like everything I was working toward just crumbled at that point at 24. Yeah. Like how much did you have about life if I really lived at 24? But so it threw me off at that point. So that kind of pushed by one of my good friends to take me out that night. It then kind of snowballed into everything else that I've gotten into from there. And so sometimes I'm always a believer in old school thought process of an arrow. An arrow only goes as far as the tension you put on it. If you put a little bit of tension on it, it drops quick. If you pull it all the way back, that thing could soar for miles. So it's just sometimes you have to those down spots, or sometimes will be your strongest, where your strongest your um upbringing, or I can't think of the word right now, but your strongest next
Steps,
positive
your
move will
strongest
come.
steps behind you.
Strongest, yeah. Okay, you got
Yeah.
it.
No, but I mean, believe it or not, this wouldn't exist. My podcast or business wouldn't exist if I didn't hurt myself either. Because of that is why I was laid up for 3 months, and I had back surgery because of an injury, and I opened up my business and started doing social media marketing because of it. So I trust me, I 100% synchronize with what you're saying. It definitely changes you when you see the mortality of your body, even at a young age. That I really got to do something with myself because I'm going to waste away. So I applaud you, and I totally 100% agree with the situation, and see the same type of mentality, getting out the gate that I had when I first started, like the HVFLI. Omar, if so, some of the things that I always ask people, not only what got you into it, if people wanted to work with you, like as not even just another client, but work with you as like another realtor, or they maybe want to become a realtor, or a real estate, or work in real estate or whatever, a real estate agent. How would they work with you? Like, is that something that you do mentorships? Do you hire them like after they pass their test? Like what kind of stuff do they have to do to be with you and hang out with you?
Well, and so here's be two things. If anyone is interested, I don't wait. I don't just wait till after you pass your test, honestly, because I feel that um, sometimes you just need that little extra help to move yourself along to get something done. And I know the test, albeit to some extent easy, can just be a lot of information. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not, I don't think that it's necessarily a difficult test to do. I just think that you have to have if you're not a studier, you have to have some of the study habits and tips to kind of move it along. So I even started a Facebook group based on people who are getting their license, to where I get together with them once a month for a study group, and start teaching some of the ways I used to pass not just my real estate salesperson license, but when I got my broker's license, when I passed that. So yeah, so one of the things I am very big on bringing people on and with me in reference to mentorship roles. I run a team currently, so it's one of the things that within that I give a lot of opportunities for business to come about. I run a lot of ads already, so it allows me to have somewhat to help someone else really get their foot in the door, and maybe and take a lot of the initial hurdles that it takes to get into real estate out in front of them, and make it a little bit of an easier path. They just have to go in and decide to run with it, and start to make things happen. So yeah, if somebody decided that they have their license and they're looking for an additional level of support, or maybe just need some help with some lead generation or business pieces, If you're thinking about getting your license, if you're in the process of the test and you're taking the class, any of the above, in one of them situations where it could definitely be, easy for me to help them along and get them off the ground, and just reach out to me. I'm all about trying to see the next person in this industry move themselves forward. It was actually one of my initiatives for this year, is to take six people to six figures. And right now I think I possibly have two on the path. So yeah, I'm looking for that next four.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, knowing you for so long, I know the personality you have. You're a great person. You're always very, like a wealth of knowledge. You're always somebody that's willing out to help the next person. So I definitely applaud you in a lot of the stuff that you've done so far, and that that mentorship program that you're basically hosting yourself. It's something that proves why I do the things that I do here, and trying to get this type of information out there to meet people like you. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure that I get across is, I always like to give my interviewees, if you will, a chance to kind of tell people, and I know that's something that you kind of tapped on right now, is if you wanted to give somebody advice in the real estate world, that wants to potentially become a realtor, a real estate agent, and what have you, what type of advice would you give them?
Um, hmm. So if you're thinking about becoming one, I would say just stay the course. Um, it's definitely a business that I promise you, it is nowhere near as easy as TV makes it look. It has hurdles, it has ups and downs.
You mean you don't show the three houses and then you pick one and then you win it?
No, 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 no. I wish. It's nowhere near that easy.
I want that house. Okay, you got it.
Yeah, definitely not. But it's one of those things that I think that one of the happiest things that I normally get to do in my job is hand somebody the keys on the back end, and knowing that their work, their time, their effort, their energy has went to actually now securing something that in most people's lives is going to be the largest purchase they ever make. Kind of just that satisfaction of seeing that part of it is really hard to. It's an adrenaline that never seems to cease to me, no matter how many houses I've sold over the past 15 years. It's just one of those things that I just love that part of what I do. So I just think that it's one of those things of just staying the course, keep working on the course. Yes, it's 77 hours. I know that a lot of times people are doing it and you get sidetracked. I tell people a lot of times, just do an hour a day, just work on an hour a day, or call me, come do it here in my office. If you will need a place to step away and really be to lock in and do it, give me a shout, come in and start working on your course, and let's see if we can help you get through that. And if you're in real estate, if I had to give any piece of advice, is really hone in your daily habits. And I mean, that goes with someone also on the who's getting their license, but it really starts to get. One thing I learned, and I learned later in my career, is how important just some of the most simplistic daily habits can help keep your business consistent. And I think that a lot of us, because of the freedom of being a realtor and you're in the industry and you don't really have to punch a clock, like there's nobody over your shoulder telling you need to be in at this time. We kind of get lazy and we don't keep up with the right habits that allow us to gain success in the long run. And I think that's a big piece of advice I wish I would have had way earlier in my career.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, that is some really good advice. And I want to make sure that people kind of like see the all around part of the business. And that's why I kind of ask a lot of these questions, and, try to get more into it with you, because without that type of knowledge, even if they're a buyer, a seller, or just somebody looking into real estate, as a profession, it's something that kind of drives them to really understand that it's not just the HGTV experience, right? Like you just said. So, that's part of the reason why I do these interviews, and why I kind of want to like talk with people like you, because you kind of can bring out the trials and tribulations, if you will, of these different types of jobs, right? And it's not just a job, it's a career. It's something that people could do for their whole life, and make a good living out of it. And, just to kind of finalize a lot of the questions that I ask, how's the market doing right now, right? And like, what can you give somebody as a customer advice about this day and age in the world of the housing industry?
Well, it's still leaning more towards the seller right now in reference to the how the market is doing. So what does that mean? That means your inventory is lower. So you always think about it's the whole also old adage of supply and demand. You have a lower supply. Last year that post-pandemic market we had a very low supply and unbelievably high demand. That's why you were having where so many houses were 15, 20 offers, 25 offers on one house, because you have that many people that are in that range, in that price point, and looking for that style of house. So where you were having basically bidding wars left and right.
Yeah, people were
It's not
like,
as
you're telling me I don't have to go to work anymore? I could just work from home? Okay, I'm moving.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what you got. It's funny because out of it, I had a lot of people I was working with, they were from the city. They were like, well, my job, they were like, I have to go into the office once per month now. So they're like, before when I had to go every day, I did not want to move this far out and have the hour and a half commute in. But for one day a month, I could commute an hour and a half for one day a month and buy and use the same what would buy me a co-op or a condo where I was living at buys me a house on a half an acre with a yard and a pool and things for my kids to do. And actually, I had one other client who so she had a co-op down in Manhattan, and I'll never forget, it was during the actual pandemic. And she said a co-op in Manhattan is amazing when you can actually go outside and do all the things outside in Manhattan. But once it shuts down and you're in a co-op in Manhattan, 900 square feet with your two kids, you start to contemplate how much you actually like your children. She said, so with that being said, she said, I need a bigger house.
Yeah.
I need space for them to get away from
They
me.
need their own space. All right, awesome, man. No, I mean, it's really been a pleasure, honestly. It really has, Omar. I know we have to catch up more often than these type of interviews and stuff like that. So we'll definitely connect again. But these are the reasons why I do these interviews, everybody. So if you're watching, make sure that you go to Omar's Facebook page at the very least. It's facebook.com/ I think it's like the backslash or forward slash. I always mess those up. REWITHHART. All right. If you go there, you're gonna find his page. Give him a like, give him a follow. Check out some of the awesome things that he does. And hit him up if you're looking for a home. I mean, or if you're selling, because this guy is awesome at what he does. I can speak to that from personal experience. I have a brother who's very happy because of the great experience that he had with Omar. And it's important for you guys to see that there's so many awesome people in the Hudson Valley. So every Wednesday at 12 in the afternoon, we'll be posting these videos on Facebook and also on YouTube. So you check out all these videos. It helps me, the creator, but it also helps these business owners and a lot of the people who work in these industries to really kind of like get out there to people that might not normally see them. And you never know, you can find them to be your next new favorite. So that being said, everybody, this is Mr. 845. Omar, thank you very much for allowing me to interview you. Check us out on another one. Every week, we're going to be doing another small business. And you never know, again, you might find a new favorite. All right, guys, check it out. See you later.
Thanks, Ramon. Have a good one.